You've heard of the American Conservative Union, have you not, ACU? And the various people who run this entity are all over TV, Fox for one. Over at Conservative Review, where I'm editor-in-chief, Chris Pandolfo is an excellent researcher and writer. He writes, the American Conservative Union has endorsed former ambassador to the Holy See, L. Francis Rooney III, for Congress in Florida's 19th Congressional District. Who is Francis Rooney? Well, he's a multimillionaire businessman, former U.S. ambassador to the Holy See under George Bush, and a long-standing Republican donor. The problem is, Rooney is also not very conservative on many issues. Indeed, Rooney has made several statements that should give conservatives pause. Remember, he was just endorsed by the American Conservative Union. That's the ACU, not the ACLU. On the sanctity of life and defunding the nation's #1 abortion provider, Rooney took a soft stance on Planned Parenthood. Asked about his pledge on a recent mail ad to defund Planned Parenthood, Rooney took the unusual step of saying the ad may have overstated his position. Quote, maybe we spoke a little broadly, he said. As a devout Roman Catholic and former ambassador to the Vatican, Rooney is deeply opposed to any form of abortion. But all Planned Parenthoods are not alike, he said, because some do abortions and some don't. Quote, the ones I oppose are the ones that do bad stuff, he said. If they're not doing abortions, that's a different kettle of worms. Maybe we hit a little too broadly on that flat promise to defund Planned Parenthood. Notice they're always looking for the fine print, ladies and gentlemen, always looking for the way out on immigration. The ACU's favorite candidate, Rooney, has associated himself with groups lobbying for amnesty. His name has appeared attached to letters from, quote, Republicans for Immigration Reform, unquote, urging Congress to act on comprehensive immigration reform. As one news report highlighted, quote, another letter from the group dated July 30, 2013, and signed by Rooney, former Bush consultant Karl Rove, Pepe Fanjul, Pepe, and many others on the first missive, mentions the same worker issues and urges GOP members of Congress to, quote, take control of who comes in the country and make sure everyone plays by the same rules. Needed fixes include securing the borders, providing ways for companies to be able to hire the workers they need, and providing a path to legal status for undocumented immigrants who pay penalties and back taxes, pass criminal background checks, and go to the back of the line. This is your usual pabulum of the comprehensive immigration types. Additionally, Rooney, backed by the American Conservative Union, has adopted anti-trade and anti-free market positions. He's railed against the evils of corporate welfare and in the same breath argued in favor of subsidies for the sugar industry. He's a crony. Some subsidies can be important, he said. Some subsidies can be important, he said. We also have to protect our industries from foreign competition. We can't have agriculture taken out from under us. Agriculture will die if we don't have trade. Any farmer will tell you that. So, you know who else is running in this district for the Republican primary? Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino, who used to be a sub on this program, Dan Bongino, who used to be a contributing editor to Conservative Review. Dan Bongino, a solid conservative. Not one of these rhinos. And the American Conservative Union doesn't get involved in every race, but decided to get involved in this Republican primary, not only failing to endorse Dan Bongino, which would be bad enough, but endorsing one of his Republican establishment opponents because he comes out of the Bush administration. Like so many of the people who run the American Conservative Union, I am stunned, I am disappointed. They run the Conservative Political Action Committee event every year. Is that just a joke? So now the ACU endorses Francis Rooney, and Francis Rooney's running all over the place in the 19th District in Florida, running ads, throwing his money around, saying the American Conservative Union backs him. when in fact the solid conservative / libertarian running in that race is our dear friend Dan Bongino? Is that what the ACU has decided to become? Apparently so. This is what happens, ladies and gentlemen, when you abandon principles. And this is going on all over the place. You know what's going on in Kansas? Kansas. We have a very good friend there. His name is Tim Huelskamp. Tim Huelskamp will be on this program at the bottom of the hour. He's being brutalized and overwhelmed by the crony capitalists at the Committee for Crony Capitalists, the Commerce organization, run by the flunky, the thug, Tom Donnelly. Tom Donnelly. And we're going to talk about that in a moment, but our good buddy Daniel Horowitz, writing a conservative review, says, long live the great anti-establishment, anti-elitist revolution within the Republican Party, right? Not. It's dead already. Continuing the streak of the near-establishment shutout of conservatives, Drew Ferguson defeated conservative Mike Crane in the runoff for the open House seat in Georgia's 3rd Congressional District. The Chamber of Crony Commerce, that is crony capitalism, spent $650,000 in support of their boy Ferguson. And Representative Ferguson had the entire state establishment behind him, the same people who opposed the religious liberty bill that Mike Crane had championed as a member of the House. But of course, Ferguson ran as a conservative to muddy the waters for voters. This is what's going on. These establishment Republicans, with their establishment Republican candidates, and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, they're spending hundreds and hundreds, if not millions of dollars, claiming their candidates are the true conservatives. They're using our nomenclature to destroy our candidates in the Republican primaries. And only I am raising my voice and calling them out and beating the pots and pans. We're getting picked off, one race after another in this country. Nothing from the conservative movement. Nothing from the Trump campaign. Damn near nothing from the conservative media. They're picking off, one after another, members of the Freedom Caucus. Outsiders, my ass. Thus far, writes Horowitz, conservatives have failed to elect a single conservative to the U.S. Senate this year, and elected no more than 5 new conservatives to the 535-member House this year. He's talking through the primary process. What is becoming evident is that, thanks to the rigged system, whereby the liberal, do-nothing Republicans use their superior funding power and their connections to lie to the voters and present themselves as the conservatives, it is impossible for conservatives to knock off incumbents and to maintain conservative incumbents. Now the corrupt party apparatus is taking their show on the road and going for the final knockout. They're challenging the few existing conservative incumbents in primaries with well-funded puppets of the Chamber of Commerce and the Big Ag lobby. Next Tuesday will be the Waterloo for conservatives in Kansas' 1st Congressional District, where a pawn of the lobbyists in Washington, D.C. is challenging Representative Tim Huelskamp, Republican Kansas, has a 91% liberty score, one of the most conservative members of the House of Representatives. His challenger, Roger Marshall, actually outraised Huelskamp precisely because he will be a tool for the big government trough. But he's running as the solid conservative. Even has the nerve to call Huelskamp a career politician, when he has really been a career warrior against the elites, the same people backing Marshall. Huelskamp, two-faced challenger, is supported by a PAC that donates to Planned Parenthood. He also supports the internet sales tax, one of the worst ideas promoted by the Republican establishment, and K Street. So while our challengers struggle to raise $50,000, their challengers can easily mount and count on hundreds of thousands from anti-free market lobbyists who happen to also sell out to the cultural Marxists. They turn around and use the money to campaign as conservatives and paint our guys as sellouts. You tell me how we can win with this rigged system. If the only incumbent to lose this cycle, outside of the redistricted places, is Tim Huelskamp. Tim Huelskamp, a champion of liberty, a champion of the Constitution, a man who fought John Boehner tooth and nail. That should serve as a cathartic moment for a movement that is currently homeless. This party is simply not working for us, and it never will, the Republican Party, writes Daniel Horowitz. We all know what needs to happen, and it's time to face the truth. This is what he says. As I laid out in detail last month, the only way to elect a critical mass of conservatives in each election cycle and chart a new course in the political system is to reform the current primary process, which is an enduring legacy of the early 20th century progressives, and adopt the Utah Convention model. I happen to agree with this. Failure to do so will result in the same... What's happening is we have people who claim to be populists. That is, majoritarians. That's not what the Constitution calls for, but they want to claim that they're for the people, they're populists, they're majoritarians, and so forth and so on. But what happens is, those who laugh at us, those play the system, billionaires, whether Soros, whether the Mercers, billionaires, pour their money into these campaigns. And in this case, the Chamber of Commerce, they wash their money through them. They overwhelm you with political ads, with mailings, with robocalls and the rest, so you don't know who's who. Unless you really follow this stuff. You know, maybe you'll retire, maybe you'll resign from your position so you can follow politics closely. But you're inundated with commercials, you're inundated with mailings, you're inundated with phone calls, and by the time you're done, the Washington entrenched ruling class wants you to believe that up is down and down is up. And many people do. That explains what happened in Indiana, where Donald Trump and his supporters win a big victory, and at the same time, Mitch McConnell and his candidate for the Senate defeats a Tea Party conservative. The convention process is the right process, but what do I know? Each state will make its decision. But for now, for today, at the bottom of the hour, I am bringing on the air a patriot, a man who has fought the U.S. Chamber of Crony Capitalism, a man who has fought John Boehner, a man who has fought the spending and the borrowing and all the rest, who they're trying to take out with a pretend conservative, a phony. I will bring him on the program at the bottom of the hour. Tim Huelskamp, who's no stranger to this program. We cannot allow them to pick him off and pick off these other people, ladies and gentlemen. We just can't allow it. All the static is out there, and we're focused only at the top of the ticket. We patriots, we conservatives, we can walk and chew gum at the same time.